In the mid-1980s, pop music was dominated by synthesizers, big hair, and glossy production. And then a quietly literate band emerged from Glasgow, Scotland with a very different idea of cool. They didn't shout, they didn't posture, they didn't dumb things down. Instead, they made smart, emotional guitar pop filled with literary references, romantic uncertainty, and melodies that lingered long after the recording stopped. Welcome back to Nostalgia Academy. This is a channel where we go over some of the best music, both known and unknown. Now, historically, I lean towards college rock bands from the past, but I like bands from all over the world. And this is the story of Lloyd Cole and The Commotions, one of the defining bands of college radio and the alternative music scene before the word alternative meant anything at all. And I discovered something funny while making this video. I have a real thing for bands that are named something and the, like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Paul Kelly and the Messengers, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I just have a soft spot for those, and now for Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. Their story begins in Glasgow, Scotland in the early 1980s. At the University of Glasgow, Lloyd Cole met musicians who shared a love not just for music, but for books, cinema, and art. This wasn't a band formed around image. It was a band formed around ideas. And the lineup was Lloyd Cole on vocals and songwriting and guitar, Neil Clark on guitar, Blair Cohen on keyboards, Lawrence Donegan on bass, and Stephen Irvine on drums. And they called themselves The Commotions, a name suggesting emotional turbulence beneath the calm surfaces, which perfectly described their music and kind of the path they took going forward. Influences ranged from American folk rock to European cinema and the jangling guitar sound emerging in the UK underground scenes and Southern alternative rock as well. But what set them apart immediately was the songwriting, because these weren't typical pop lyrics. They referenced authors, philosophy, and complicated relationships, delivered with wit, vulnerability, and intelligence rather than rock star bravado. And I like that. Even the early demos showed the band had a sense of musical narrative, the way the songs flowed, the guitar and keyboards conversed, subtle interplay of rhythm and melody. It felt like listening to a novel unfold in song form. It really, really did. Now, in 1984, the band released their debut album. It's called Rattlesnakes, and this is a really good record. Most of the songs were written by Lloyd Cole in Glasgow, inspired as much by literature and philosophy as by music. The album references Joan Didion, Simone de Beauvoir, and Norman Mailer without ever feeling pretentious. Cole demoed Perfect Skin and Forest Fire in a weekend beneath the Glasgow Golf Club where his family works, and by the next month they had a record deal, and every song on Rattlesnakes was written within a year of the album's release, which is astonishing for a debut, because normally you have all your life to write and develop that first album, and then every album after that is not as good. In this case, this might have been the best one, but we'll see. Produced with clarity and restraint, the album avoided mid-80s excesses. This had clean guitars, tasteful keyboards, even accordion in some songs, and emotionally direct vocals that defined the sound. Standout tracks on the album: Perfect Skin. It's the first single, the first thing anyone heard of him. It's sharp, it's observational, it's witty. It sounds like it ripped off Subterranean Homesick Blues by Bob Dylan a little bit, and Lloyd Cole will even say that song Perfect Skin would not have existed unless the Bob Dylan song existed previous. He didn't say he copied it, he just said that. Forest Fire, it's a smoky, melancholic, unforgettable song. It's one that it's slower, but it's really good. My favorite probably is Are You Ready to Be Heartbroken? That was just brutally honest, and it burned a comeback song from Camera Obscura, another band from Scotland, called Hey Lloyd, I'm Ready to Be Heartbroken. And it's a pretty cute little song. Then Down on Mission Street, that one's cinematic, it's reflective, I like it. I like almost every song on this album, but those are just four of my standouts. Cole, he wrote about uncertainty, romantic doubt, and kind of awkward human emotions, rather than, tidy triumphs or tragedies. Critics praised its intelligence. Fans connected to its vulnerability. I know I did. Slowly, the band became heroes of indie and college rock music scenes, and Rattlesnakes became a blueprint for alternative pop from the Europe section of the world, let's say. I spent a lot of time with this record. It sounded similar to the literate pop put out by bands like the Smiths, but to me, they just came across as smarter. They just sounded that way to me, and ultimately cooler. Now, in America, something kind of unexpected happened. While the mainstream radio largely ignored them, they were on MTV from time to time. College radio embraced them big time. Stations were run by students who valued discovery and intelligence. DJs would share records like Sacred Texts, and Lloyd Cole's literate pop fit that perfectly because it felt like something you discovered. Songs complemented artists who valued craft over spectacle. Listeners heard echoes of folk traditions combined with jangly guitar pop, modern, timeless, intelligent, all that. The music became deeply personal, listening with headphones on late at night in your dorm, making a mixtape for a crush that you don't even know knows who you are, solitary drives to the country. All that was great. The band didn't feel manufactured, they felt real, and authenticity spreads fast. And by the mid-'80s, they were already iconic on college radio. Following a celebrated debut is never easy, and that's always the hardest lift, I think, for any new band. In 1985, the band released their second album, Easy Pieces. Now, I love this record. After the critical praise and steady momentum of Rattlesnakes, expectations were high, and commercially, Easy Pieces did not disappoint, at least on paper. It actually became their fastest-selling album, and in its first couple weeks, it moved more copies than Rattlesnakes had sold in an entire year, which is crazy. In the UK, it climbed all the way to number 5, their highest chart position ever, and it spun off 3 top 40 singles. So if you're just looking at the charts, well, the sales numbers, it looks like a clear step forward, but here's where it gets interesting. Critical response wasn't exactly glowing. It wasn't brutal, it was just lukewarm, a little hesitant. And more importantly, the band themselves weren't thrilled with it. Lloyd Cole later reflected that there was something really fresh about the first album, something spontaneous and alive, and that by the time they made Easy Pieces, that freshness had been carried over without being replaced by something new. In other words, it sounded polished, it sounded pleasant, but maybe not inspired in the same way. And bassist Lawrence Donegan, he didn't bother softening it. He just called the album terrible. And I disagree completely. And that might be harsh. It is, especially considering how many fans love this record. And it is my favorite Lloyd Cole record. It tells you something about where the band's head was at, that even when they were commercially successful and absolutely artistically satisfied, they weren't. And sometimes that tension between success and fulfillment is where the cracks begin to show. Standouts on this, I think all of them are. But Brand New Friend is catchy, yet it's also introspective. Lost Weekend is romantic and reckless. It's wonderful. It's the single that first came out. It's kind of odd video, but I still like it. My personal favorite on this record is called Why I Love Country Music. I thought that one could have lived on Rattlesnakes just fine. It's that good. And that's always the one that, when I make a mixtape for a young lady in high school, that would always end up on there. Now, behind the scenes, tensions were growing. Producers were pushing for accessibility over craft, I guess. The label encouraged hits. The delicate balance between intimacy and commercial ambition became harder to maintain, and that's hard. It's hard to push back on when the producers and the suits are asking for that. Some fans missed the raw edge of Rattlesnakes, but Easy Pieces proved that the band could evolve without abandoning intelligence. It captured the band at a crossroads of indie credibility and mainstream possibility, and they kind of went the second direction, if you know what I mean. Now, by 1987, the band released their third and ultimately final album, Mainstream. It's a title that is simply dripping with irony. And by the time they got around to making Mainstream, things had changed, and not just creatively. The record cost about £300,000 to make, and that's 10 times what Rattlesnakes cost back in 1984, just 3 years earlier. 10 times. And it took 5 months to record, where Rattlesnakes was just done in a few weeks, I do believe. So we're not talking about a scrappy, hungry debut anymore. This was a major production, and big-time studio time was invested. Big expectations, big pressure, and I gotta admit, they kind of caved a little bit. And while all that was happening, the band itself was starting to come apart. Keyboardist Blair Cohen had already left by the time the album was released, and if you look at the artwork, you'll notice something, that he is not in the band photos. He's only mentioned in a dedication on the inner sleeve, and that tells you kind of everything you know about where things stood. Lawrence Donegan was also close to walking away. He'd been accepted into a journalism class, or course, and was seriously considering a different path altogether. Now, when a member of a band starts planning their next career, you can kind of see where it's headed. So by the time Mainstream was finished, there was already a quiet understanding that this was probably the end. Not a dramatic implosion, not some tabloid-worthy meltdown, just a sense that they'd reached a natural stopping point, and it's fine. The best ones on here, really, I think the only ones that I like a whole lot, is From the Hip. That's, I think, the second song. Jennifer, She Said, is just absolute masterpiece. Mr. Malcontent, that one's okay. It's fine, but I had to pick 3. The album sounds confident enough. To me, outside of those 3 songs, there's not a lot there. Even the lead single, My Bag, which is fun, but it's only kind of okay when I listen back to it now. It doesn't sound like them, right? But still, there were obligations. And this is crazy, because the album had to be promoted. Tour had to happen. And that tour stretched out for about a year. So in a strange way, the band was promoting its own farewell without officially saying it. And then when that was over, that was it. 3 albums, a short, intense run, and then done. And that's just, I don't know if that's really great or really terrible, because later on, Lloyd Cole put out dozens of solo albums, so you can still hear him, but I liked the band, Lloyd Cole and The Commotions. Now, they never became global superstars. They didn't headline stadiums or dominate MTV, but influence isn't measured just by charts. Their legacy lives in literate indie songwriting, which we still have today. Emotionally honest lyrics, which we still have today. Jangly guitar pop valuing subtlety over spectacle. You still find that today. So a lot of that goes back to the lessons learned from Lloyd Cole and his Commotions. They helped bridge the post-punk introspection to the alternative explosion of the 1990s. Vulnerability could be powerful. Literary references could coexist with hooks. Understatement could be revolutionary, and they proved that. And not every legacy is loud. Some endure because they never tried too hard, but because they trusted their songs. Decades later, these songs still sound like, or they still feel like, conversations worth having. And I'm glad to have had that. Their first album was fantastic. The second one I liked more, but most of the world didn't. Their third one, somewhat of a clunker all around. So it was just, I liked all of it. So now I want to turn it over to you. Did you ever see them live? I'm not sure they ever played near me. Probably Atlanta, maybe at least once. Favorite album? Most say Rattlesnakes, but for me it's Easy Pieces. Did you appreciate Lloyd's solo work over his work with the Commotions? I'll have to do a video for that one as well. At any rate, let me know in the comments. Leave a like or subscribe. It helps the channel. And I love reading your thoughts in the comments. So until next time, always look up, because that's where the answers are. And I will catch y'all on the next one. Take care.